looking at how we support carers and deciding on the viability of our economy on that basis. The only thing that matters to them is whether they will get repaid or not. They probably haven't even been able to believe their luck that this government has continued on the policies of Fianna Fáil and making sure that they get every penny back again. In fact, a society that has a greater measure of social cohesion, like the Scandinavian economies, are far more likely to be able to continue to pay their bills, as a general lack of the effect of the economic crisis has shown on them over the last 5 years. And that is the type of society we should be trying to build, not pandering to the so-called markets.
Thank
you, Concola. I find this particularly puzzling because there's so little money involved, which causes so much damage and so much hurt and so much pain to so many people who are doing so much good. And you know, a cut of this sort, which saves, I think, 26 million, can hardly be taken by human beings who consider the needs of their fellow human beings. And there's a tendency, I think, in the cuts that are being imposed for some of us to believe that they're being made by civil servants somewhere who see figures, see cuts here and possible savings there, and don't see human beings at the other end of these figures at all. Because if you want to save 26 million, there are thousands of other ways of doing it besides hurting people who are doing so much good. And I'm not some sort of bleeding heart socialist. I don't believe that not yet. I don't believe that the books should not be balanced. I believe that there is. Thank you, Minister. I don't for one moment think that we should go out there and complain about all the cuts. I believe the books should be balanced. But why, in the name of God, if you're going to save 26 million, can you not look elsewhere? Why can't you do something about the quangos, which, Minister, your government promised so much about and has done so little to fulfill its promises? There is waste in the semi-states which can be cut at the drop of a hat. And the idea that you can't save another 26 million elsewhere and save so much trouble to the carers and those who they look after is unbelievable. What about the higher echelons in the civil service, which we've talked about so much? Why couldn't you save 26 million there? Why couldn't you save 26 million in increments? Something which we simply cannot afford at this time. Why can't you save 26 million, and I'm sick and tired of mentioning this, out of the pension fund industry? 1.5 years ago, I asked the Taoiseach, and he promised to look at it, why he was taking 0.6% out of pension funds when he could take hundreds of millions out of the industry who are exploiting the pensioners and earning enormous sums of money, and nothing has been done about it. Because a quango sits at the top of that industry, protecting that industry, the pensions board. And yet, when you could save 26 million there at the drop of a hat, you go and take 26 million out of people who are vulnerable and who are, of course, unable to defend themselves. And what's so ugly about this particular cut is that the carers are about the last people in this country who can defend themselves, because they're on the job, maybe 24/7, maybe not 24/7, but as everybody knows, and this is why it's so odious, they can't walk off the job. These guys can't walk away and leave their family or their loved ones alone, unprotected and unlooked after. So you might as well have taken 50 million off them. You'd have got the same reaction. They wouldn't have been able to do very much about it. And I think it's unfortunate that on this issue, on the general point, I accept that the government has a point and they're wearing it a bit thin. But on this issue, there should be fingers pointed at Fianna Fáil and say, hey, you cut it as well.
1 minute, Deputy.
Sorry?
1 minute.
Yeah, they did. Of course they did. But on this issue, I think they should come forward and say the real reason why they did it. And I can't understand it. I can understand a civil servant doing it. Civil servants are paid to have a look at a few figures and just cut 26 million here. But I can't understand politicians doing it, causing so much mayhem and so much suffering for so little money. You know, these guys, these carers, they earn their social welfare. There are lots of people who don't earn their social welfare and get it for very, very good reason. But the carers are people who are very special because they're actually in there doing a job and being paid for their social welfare. And there are areas, and it's still politically unpalatable to say so, where social welfare could be safe. There are dole dodgers around the country. There are people exploiting social welfare, and there does not appear to be the political will. It is to stop that. It is the easy option that is being taken, the cowardly option and the ugly option.
Come on, Deputy Luke Flanagan, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. This one is a little bit baffling. The fact that we constantly hear about the fact that we've got to balance the books, and that's all that's important. And I understand that. I understand you've got to balance the books, and that you've got to make things add up, and that you're answerable to the Troika, and you have to do what you're told. Well, if that is the case, maybe you should go in and explain the situation about carers to them. Because if it's about money, I think you should explain the equation to them. Now, imagine I'm a carer. You give me a tenner. What do I give back to the state? I give back 50 euros to the state in the service that I provide. I get this, I give ye that. Fairly simple. I would imagine the Troika might understand it. Now, I don't know, am I allowed to hold up this money
No,
here?
actually, I'm going to say, Deputy. But
I'm not, no.
I know it's Christmas. It's the week before Christmas.
All right. I have to say, I'll take something good out of it. I have no respect for this money anyway. We should have never left our own currency. But anyways,
It's not to display it.
the reality is that if you didn't give a damn about carers, and you didn't care about the fact that it's nice to stay at home with your family, and you might live longer, and you'll be happier, and everything will work out better for society. We just ignore all of that, and you just look at the money equation, because it's all about money, nothing else matters. I heard that, and I keep hearing it since I got in here. Well then, it's a fairly good deal. You give the carer a tenner, and they give 50 euros worth of value to the state. That is a good deal, a really good deal. Now, you'd imagine if you were getting a deal like that from someone, you'd hold them high, and you'd praise them, and you'd cheer them on, and you'd say, keep doing it, because we're getting a good deal here. But what do they get instead? Well, what they get is, they get told they should be damned well thankful for getting it. Look at what they get in Northern Ireland. I do not give a damn what they get in Northern Ireland. I don't care what they get in Afghanistan or China or the USA. What I care about is it enough to survive here? And when you go on about what they get in the north, it's irrelevant. It's what it takes to survive here. You're getting good value, and you don't seem to appreciate it. Now, you'd imagine if you're getting a good deal off someone, you wouldn't make it difficult for them to strike a deal with you. Well, I'll give you an example of someone who wants to strike a deal with the state, where they're prepared for 10 euros to give 50 euros value for the state. Now, my secretary wrote to me today just to tell me the torture that she goes through with this. In relation to the carers allowance, applications from last December are now being dealt with now. That means the average waiting time is 12 months from the date of application. We have had numerous people on to us in relation to the carers allowance, and the most recent application is the 18th of December, which has just been dealt with. Now, the people who want to do this great deal with you, that you financially gain from, you won't even deal with them. It seems to me that really no one could be that incompetent or no government could be that incompetent that they couldn't get it together in a year to pay someone out, that you'd have to conclude that there is a policy of, I hope you'll go away and stop annoying us, because that appears to be the policy. Now, this example of an individual would prove that, as far as I'm concerned. We have a lady onto us who has appealed her decision for carers allowance, and we were told that this week she had failed to pass the medical side of things again. She cares for her full-time, she cares for her partner full-time, and her case has been ongoing for over 18 months. She is in an awful state. Her partner has prostate cancer since 2007 and underwent radiotherapy, where his bowel was damaged. As a result, it is bleeding on a continuous basis. He has had 5 operations in St. Vincent's and is going for another one in January. He constantly needs his clothes to be changed and basically his 24-hour care. He is only 69 years of age. He also has other conditions, including asthma, he has a heart condition and a huge kidney problem, and he is refused on medical grounds. Recognise a good deal when you see one. If it's all about money, just recognise it. Forget about the people. We know that's happened. Just think about the money. 10, 50, good deal.
Deputy Matthew McGrath, 5 minutes.
I too am delighted to be able to speak tonight on this motion. I compliment Deputy Hannigan on putting it down and the technical group for supporting. I am slightly worried about Deputy Ross and the seating arrangements here, because we had confusion last night over the votes, and I see him sitting up there and Deputy Fleming between the half left. It does worry me, but maybe we'll sort that out later on. But anyway, I compliment him on his understanding of the carer situation. And look, none of us need to claim credit. The carers do a tremendous job, 24/7. No, I said Tom Fleming as well. I said Tom Fleming as well. Both of them sitting between the two half left. But anyway,
you've only a few minutes.
And he's supposed to be from the hat right. But anyway, I know he's not hat right either. Listen, can I just say to Deputy Collins and indeed to Minister McGinley and Minister Perry, look, it's not for me to lecture you or whatever anything else, but look, the carers are a special group of people. They work 24/7, and they do. And it's been mentioned there for the amount of money and the value. I'm a member. I proudly wear the badge until someone, their organisation, pulled it off me inside the gate last Thursday. But I do wear the badge with honour and respect. They're tremendous people. And the Care Association in South Tip, which I want to refer to, and the manager, Councillor Richard Malloy, who's an independent councillor down there, and all the people involved in the committee, from treasure hunts on Stephen's Day, from treasure hunts August Bank Holiday, coffee mornings, table quizzes. Look, you all know, I don't have to preach to you, you know what goes on, what they have to do to supplement the carers and augment the what they get. But the real carers in their home, who are caring for people like that Deputy Planning referred to, and goodness knows, we could be any of those soldiers anytime soon. We could be. And we could need care. And then we'll know about the HAS system, that you have to wait 12 months for an application to be dealt with. You have to wait nearly 2 years for an appeal. It's just downright disgraceful. And we can't allow this, because in any modern country, they call themselves democracy. This is a charade. It's a blockage. It's telling them go away, as Deputy Planning has said, but we have to deal with it, Minister. And we have to make cuts, certainly, and balance the books. But 26 million here. The 1,700 that the carers get for the break, they get to take a break once a year. And by God, are they entitled to it. And they don't get the break because sometimes they bring the people they're caring for with them. Other times they're ringing on the phone at home because they're attached, they're connected. They are people that are really care and front line. And then we cut to home help, so you get a half an hour now instead of an hour and a half. The home help wouldn't have the car turned, wouldn't have the key turned in the front door to come in. It's an insult to the dignity of human beings, what's happened here. And you say what you like of the last crowd, and I was one of them. Say what you like about it. We protected the carers. We protected them at all costs because they had some bit of connectivity with the ordinary people. And we did at all times, and they lobbied hard the carers, and we fought for them, and we did. I asked you, Deputy Collins, and I asked Minister Perry, you went back last year into their schools for a bigger amount of money, for 26 million. Please, 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 find it elsewhere. Because it can be found. It can be found if you looked at your right minister and talked to the man in finance. Oh, great, they told you to get 500 million property tax. Oh, no problem, property figures out of the sky. They don't care where it comes from. What it doesn't come from themselves. You go after those people. Go after the increments that you're paying them. Not the lowly civil servant or the lowly man with the shovel on the road or the front desk. The fat cats that are in the departments advising you, Minister. And we're sitting back, PQ replies to me and you, Deputy Collins, and others, that we can't answer this, the Minister's no responsibility. It's a charade. It's time they were found out. It's time they were dealt with. Take it where they can give it. Don't be demonising the carers, because they are proud people. They do so much work for their families and their relations and loved ones. And they save a fortune in hospital bills and save trolleys and waiting for beds. We all know that. I don't have to tell you, but there's something morally and physically and corruptly, I'd say, wrong with the system when we penalise these people and we let off the people that should be taxed. The department will tell us that they can't tax, or they can't assess the child benefit. They can't do a means test. That is a lie. It's a lazy, inept, unenergetic fallacy that they're portraying there. It's time they got a real waking up and told to take the money where it can be got and leave people who are giving so much to the state, so much to their families, saving so much money. It's badly, badly gone wrong. And it happened in the last government, it's happening in this government, and it'll happen in this government. The permanent government that have to be dealt with and have to be called aside. They don't need increments. They're well cushioned. And I hope that no one will be carers that they need, because they'll get very poor care. We're not good.
Deputy Seamus Healy, 5 minutes.
Let's count Corla. Carers will be recognised and respected as key care partners. They will be supported to maintain their own health and well-being and to care with confidence. They will be empowered to participate as fully as possible in economic and social life. The National Carer Strategy 2012, and I've quoted from it. Now, what has happened in this budget is very, very far from respecting carers and respecting them as key care partners. What in fact has happened is that they've been targeted in a blunt and brutal way for an attack on their incomes and on themselves and on their families. They do tremendous work, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And the respite care grant, in very many cases, is not possible for carers to use it for respite. They're using it to pay for normal day-to-day bills, for heating, and particularly for heating, which is very, very necessary for elderly people who they would be caring for. So far from allowing them to take a holiday, the respite care grant is being used to fund the day-to-day expenses of the family of the carer and the person who's being cared for. The amount of money that's being saved in this brutal and vicious cut is only about 26 million euros, a drop in the ocean, 0.14% of a 20 billion euro budget, 0.14%. And we were supposed to, both government parties told us in the election that the most vulnerable would be protected. This is exactly the opposite. As another reneging on another commitment by both these parties. Now, the fact of the matter is that there were choices. This government could have got savings elsewhere, or they could have got tax increases elsewhere. And I'm going to repeat what I've repeated in this House on numerous occasions. The wealthiest 5% of people in this country have 239 billion euros in assets. The same people over the years 2009 and 2010 increased their assets by 46 billion euros. Not my figures, CSO figures. The same 10% of those people, 10% of the wealthiest people in this country, increased their income over the recession by 6%, in the teeth of the recession. These are people who are doing well out of the recession and who this government won't take a halfpenny from. Why isn't there a wealth tax? Why isn't there an assets tax? They're in other countries. Such a tax was introduced by a Fine Gael minister years ago, Minister, in the 1970s. And if that tax was in place today, it would be bringing in something like 2 billion euros a year. And there'd be absolutely no necessity for these cruel and miserly cuts on people who are working above and beyond the call of duty on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, for every minute of every day of every year.
1 minute, Deputy.
Thank you, Les Corla. The other thing I want to say is this, and I want the Minister to address this question, because it's my view, and I've been dealing with applications for carers allowance for a long number of years, it's my view that there has been a political instruction given to the Department of Social Protection to refuse carers allowance. Because I have seen it over the last 25 years, and I know that 2 years ago, 18 months ago, people who are being refused now would have got it without any difficulty at all and should be getting it. And I want the Minister to address that point. I believe that there is a political instruction gone out to the Department to change the criteria for carers allowance so as those allowances can be refused. The other disgrace is that the delays in the applications. I had a case recently where it took 51 weeks to get a decision for a carer who was looking after a child who was quadriplegic, who was wheelchair bound, and who should have been approved within 6 to 8 weeks if right were right. The Minister should address that issue and should address it absolutely urgently.
Good evening. Deputy Tom Fleming, 5 minutes.
The thousands of family carers who are propping up Ireland's fragile health system, yet recent policy developments highlight the expanding role they will play in the future, with less patients in our hospitals, shorter hospital stays and increasing focus on community care. The contribution made by family carers to the Irish economy has been estimated to be worth at least over €4 billion each year. Yet the delivery of this highly valuable service to our older and vulnerable adults and children with special needs does not come without an enormous personal cost to carers, as research has consistently identified that carers are at an at-risk group for negative well-being, as they have higher than average rates of depression, chronic illness and injury, and poverty due to the physical, emotional and financial demands of caring. In the census of 2011 on the health, disability and carers in Ireland, the statistics show that 595,335 people, representing 13% of the total population, that a total of 106,270 disabled people, and 18% of that, of all disabled persons, lived alone at the time of the census, which was in April 2011. Also, the census showed that a total of 187,112 persons, or 4.1% of the total population, were providing unpaid assistance to others in 2011. This is a very significant statistics, as these people providing this intermittent, we'll call it casual care, are not receiving any remuneration from the state, and therefore substantial savings are accruing to the state by the we'll say in many cases is probably unrecognised, and maybe it is not very visible, this form of supports that's out there in many cases voluntary, and it is unrecognised really what these people are providing and what they're contributing to this particular group. Carers who are in receipt of social welfare protection payments and on call 24/7 have been cut in an average income support by 5% in the budget, which is more than twice the average cut in income support to all other recipients of social protection payments, which I believe is working out at about approximately 1.8%. The government claims that it has protected core payments for family carers in the budget, but the respite care grant is a core payment.
1 minute, Deputy.
And for family carers to buy in occasionally as they need, as they do home and residential respite, as well as meeting the everyday additional costs of caring in the home. And as Deputy has remarked here to me earlier, this additional cost of carrying there's only an adjustment of the required 26 billion to rescind the cut and return it to pre-budget works out at 0.14% in a budget of approximately 20 billion in total. So it's a minute amount really, and I think it's within the capacity of the government to readjust the budget and to right the wrong and to enable and assist these families to give a quality of life to their loved ones and to enable themselves to get a reasonable break and a rest time. And I did say to the staff that many of these are under extreme pressure. They are vulnerable to negativities in their own health and well-being. And also I must say that it's astounding really that the carers, many of the carers who are being refused in their application for the carers allowance are being, when they appeal, they may have to wait 12 months, which is ridiculous. But 50% of them are overturned and they're receiving it after 12 months of wait.
Camille Margaret, now called Minister of State, Deputy John Perry.
Let's hear it. Listening to the various contributions to the debate, I was reminded once again how close to home the issue of carers is. Each individual carer mentioned represents the thousands of carers from every corner of Ireland, from every parish and every family who receive no awards, often little recognition and sometimes not even the awareness of those for whom they care. People need help and support in doing this, and this government is committed to supporting family carers as much as we can. The income supports that carers receive from the Department of Social Protection are amongst the highest rates in Europe and remain so after this budget. Yes, we had to reduce the respite care grant, but the revised rate of respite care grant is €1,375, will still be more than twice what it was in 2002, when it was €635, and higher than it was in 2006 at the height of the economic boom, when it was 1,200. And the other support for carers,
Please.
the carers allowance, the carers benefit, the half-rate carers allowance, the domiciliary care allowance, the disability allowance, all untouched by the budget. In very difficult circumstances over the last 2 years, this government has had to make difficult decisions and reassess priorities. In the face of enormous economic pressure, the government has chosen to continue supporting carers to the maximum extent possible. We have retained the half carers rate allowance, which I know is of great value to carers both financially and in what it represents. We have retained the respite care grant, although at a reduced rate, including for people who don't otherwise qualify for other income supports. And we have retained the principle of paying the grant in respect of each person being cared for. This year alone, the expenditure on carers in the Department of Social Protection is over 771 million, 509 million on carers allowance, 24 million on carers benefit, and 135 million on the respite care grant, and 103 million on the domiciliary care allowance. This represents an increase of almost 20 million on expenditure in 2011. The weekly carers allowance payment is almost 20% higher this year than in 2006 and more than 147% higher than in 1997. We have approximately 55,000 carers in receipt of carers allowance or benefit and 26,000 in receipt of domiciliary care allowance. A number of deputies have referred to delays in processing applications for carers allowance, and I acknowledge that the current processing times are unacceptable. However, measures are being taken to address this issue. At the end of November 2012, there were almost 9,000 claims awaiting decision. Following the completion of a major IT modernisation project and an in-depth business process improvement, the project was completed for the carers allowance scheme. This project focused on improving the output and the customer service and the reduction of the backlog. 14 additional staff were assigned to assist with the backlog and the processing of new claims, and the implementation of the plan commenced on Monday, the 3rd of September, and is being closely monitored and managed to ensure that it achieves its objectives.
1 minute.
A noted increase in the number of new claims processed has been achieved in recent months, where claims processed have substantially exceeded claims intake. However, it will take a number of months before the backlog is reduced to an acceptable level. The Carers strategy sets out a vision to work towards and an ambitious set of national goals and objectives to guide policy development and service delivery to ensure that carers feel valued and supported to manage their caring responsibility with confidence and are empowered to have a life of their own outside of caring. The strategy also contains a roadmap for its implementation, which outlines the actions that will be taken to deliver on the goals and the objectives of the strategy. And the roadmap also outlines the timelines and the department with responsibility for their implementation. Each government department will produce an annual report on progress, which will be published on their website, and a progress report on the overall implementation of the strategy will be produced on periodic basis over the lifetime of the strategy and presented to the Cabinet Committee on Social Policy. Each department has appointed a senior official to take responsibility for the department actions and for the provision of the ongoing updates to the Cabinet Committee. In conclusion, this government continues to face a daunting challenge in repairing the economy and the public finances. Difficult decisions are still required. As we have shown in Budget 2013, we are committed to meeting the challenge and are determined that through good government, we will lead Ireland back to independent funding and back to sustainable growth in living standards and employment. We're facing the future in a positive light. We have seen a total transformation in only 12 months. Today, markets and foreign lenders are lending once again to Ireland and to Irish businesses. This will help our businesses and our economy to continue to push to recovery. This was the context in which the government took the hard decisions in the budget. This government has a vision for carers, a vision of Ireland which recognises and respects the valuable role of carers in society by providing them with support where necessary, to assist them in their caring role and to enable them to participate as fully as possible in the economic and social life. This is our vision, and that is what guides us.
I now call on Deputy Richard Boyd-Barrett. I understand you're sharing with Deputies Stephen Donnelly and John Hallett. 5 minutes each.
First of all, I want to thank Deputy Halligan for putting forward this motion and for recognising in this motion the incalculable service the carers provide to our society and to some of the most vulnerable in that society. I have to say I'm a bit bemused right from the offset, with no personal disrespect to you, Minister, as to why the Minister for Small Business is in taking a motion on carers. One would have expected at the very least either the Minister herself, the Minister for Health, or even a junior Minister for Health. And I don't frankly understand why someone whose brief is very, very different from this is taking the issue. Well,
Please, no, please.
we're
Deputy Boyd.
That is a very telling comment, which in a way reinforces one of the main points I want to make. But let me say, first of all, Minister, there is no economic rationale or logic that can justify making life worse for carers and consequently making life worse for those that they care for, some of the most vulnerable people in our society. There are no words anyone in this House can say to do justice to the heroic and selfless work that carers do. The working week, the working day, the working year never ends for a carer. They are on call 24/7. They might not always be working all of those hours, but they are on call all of those hours. And if any other worker in any profession had to work the hours, the level of intensity that carers had to do and be on call at that level to carry out the sort of work and service they provide to the people they love, but also to our society and our economy, they would be paid multiples of what carers receive. So I say again, nothing no economic rationale, no talk of the Troika, no talk of difficult decisions confronting the government can justify making life worse for those carers. And without question, these cuts in respite care grants and the absolutely unacceptable delays and refusals in terms of carers allowance applications, delays which have trebled on your watch, these are unconscionable, absolutely without justification, and nothing you can say. And it is preposterous to talk about how generous the regime is. No, the generous ones are the carers. Nothing could be more generous or selfless than what they do for the people they care for and for our society and for our economy. They give back 4 or 5 times more to our economy than they take from it. You should be down on your bended knees thanking them, not making life worse for them. And when I hear people say, rightly, in the government, that money is not the issue for carers, it certainly isn't, because they wouldn't be doing it if it was the issue for the amount that they are given.
Just 1 minute, Tip.
But that somehow this will be compensated, the government say, by a review of services. Please don't make us laugh or insult the intelligence of the carers. Those services are being cut. Only weeks ago, I brought the families, dozens of families, of parents of children with severe intellectual disabilities into this gallery to point out to the Taoiseach that respite care day services, 24/7 services, had been slashed. He said in that engagement, oh, meet with the service provider, we'll look at it, we'll sort it out. They got nothing. Nothing. Those services were slashed. End of story. And there's 780 million worth of health cuts James Riley has put through in this budget, and we don't even know what they are going to mean, but they are definitely going to mean further cutbacks in day services, respite services. So don't give us the economic claptrap. There is no justification for this. Even a small bit of extra income tax on those earning over 100,000, cutting the pay of some of the top CEOs in the semi-states, or some wealth tax would have covered this very easily. It's appalling. Back off on it.
Call Deputy Stephen Donnelly. From out 5 minutes, Deputy Donnelly.
Thank you. Last Corla, I want to address the 20% cut to the respite care grant, which is being introduced by the Cabinet in Budget 2013. I'm not going to dwell, Last Corla, on the meanness of this cut. I'm not going to dwell on how unnecessary this cut is in the context of the Troika targets. And I'm not going to dwell on the hardship which we know this cut is going to cause across the country. All of this has been covered, Last Corla, with passion and eloquence by many other deputies. What I want to do is to demonstrate how technically flawed this cut is and how it will, in all probability, not save the state a single cent. Now, the Carers Association of Ireland tell us that there are 180,000 carers in Ireland, and we know that 77,000 of these are in receipt of the respite care grant. Now, it's estimated that this care saves the state or is worth €4 billion. So on average, 180,000 carers are providing €22,000 worth of care per year. Now, the figure that we're told this cut is going to save is €26 million, Last Corla, but of course it's not, because that money gets taken out of the economy. Using the government's multiplier, the saving would be €16 million. But of course that's not where this ends, because whilst many carers will continue to provide the level of care that they provide, regardless of the cut, some will not be able to do so. Some won't be able to provide the €22,000 worth of care which they currently provide. So here's the maths. If just 1 in 100 of those 77,000 carers can no longer provide the care and pass it on to the state, pass the cost on to the state, that will wipe out the entire €16 million. So the question you have to ask from a policy perspective is, how many of the 77,000 are going to be forced to do this because of financial constraints? Now, we don't know. because the Dáil has not been provided with any technical appendix, with any analysis for this cut. But 1 in 100 doesn't seem that far-fetched. So, Lascian Corla, if this happens, if 1 in 100 of the carers can no longer provide that care, the Cabinet will in fact have achieved 3 things. They won't have saved a penny. They'll have made lives more difficult for 77,000 carers and the people who they care for. And they will have shown a total disregard, Lascian Corla, for this House by not providing it with the time to debate the legislation or the data needed to interrogate it properly. I'd like to compliment Deputy Hannigan for bringing this motion forward and say that I am very proud to have signed it and will be voting in its favour very shortly. This is bad legislation and it is bad policy. I believe it goes against our values as a society. 2 days after the budget announcement, I was knocking on doors in Wicklow. And the single most common thing I heard from people on low incomes, from people on middle incomes, from people on high incomes was do not bring in a cut to the carers.
1 minute, Deputy.
Those on middle incomes, those on high incomes said, I will reluctantly pay higher taxes. But if the choice is tax me or cut the carers, tax me. And those on lower incomes said, we'll pay the tax if we can, or let's find other ways to do this. But do not bring in this cut of 26 million euros. So what do we know? We know without a shadow of a doubt that this is going to cause hardship across the country. And we know without a shadow of a doubt that it is mean-spirited and financially unnecessary. What we don't know is if it's going to save the state a single cent. This cut, Lascian Corla, should be reversed.
Deputy John Halligan, Cognomet.
Thank you, Lascian Corla. First of all, can I thank my colleagues in the technical group for their valuable contributions, and indeed all of those who contributed to the debate over the last 2 days. I would have felt that, looking at the private member's business motion, that the first 4 lines, the vital contribution that carers make to the economic and social life of the nation, that carers are real and equal partners in the provision of care at every level of public service, that although family carers in the majority of cases are on 24-hour call a day, they work 365 days a week, they do not earn the minimum wage and are entitled to no sick pay or holiday pay, and that family carers provide 4 billion worth of care each year, which is 5 times the actual cost of the Department of Social Welfare. That this would have been seen to have been at least reasonable, fair and just, and that's what society is about. People being reasonable, being fair to one another and calling for a just society. And I spoke yesterday how we gallantly protected senior servants, civil servants' pensions and ministerial pensions, while we pay carers the equivalent to 1 cent an hour for 24/7 care. I also said about that they are the only full-time workers in the social welfare system that are paid. They work full-time for the social welfare. They work 7 days a week without earning the minimum wage, sick pay, holiday pay, and as equivalent to a PAYE worker. And I said that no civilised society would tolerate modern-day slavery. I want to speak about 2 people, Mary and Stephen. Mary's dad had a stroke 6 years ago, very severe stroke, and her mum was diagnosed with emphysema. Mary lives with her mum and dad. The rest of the family lived with their own families. Mary is 7 stone. Mary decided not to put her dad into care, or not to put her mum into care. She said that they had loved her and she was going to love them for the rest of their lives. So began an ordeal of love, despair and stress. Love for her mother and father, the despair of seeing them being consistently and constantly ill, and the stress she had to go through, and I know this, and I'll tell you why in a second, of having to get up and turn my father, it's my father and my mother I'm speaking about, 4 or 5 times during the night. And I know how she works, and how she works so hard. And Mary doesn't go on Joe Duffy or Pat Kenny or Vincent Brown, or she doesn't go on the front of the papers because she hasn't time. She sees this as a commitment she has made to my father. My mother is now dead, by the way, but she made that commitment to my mother and father as they had committed care and love to her. Stephen is 26 years of age. His wife is 24. His wife went completely blind 2 years ago. She had 6 minor strokes, and she's on dialysis, and he has a 2.5-year-old child. Stephen is now committed to her life and his life in caring for his wife. It's 24 hours and looking after his child. When he contacted me, I was wondering why a 26-year-old who was only living a few streets away from my office could not come down to the office, because he can't leave the house. Would it be just and reasonable and fair to pay the Marys in Ireland and the Stephens and all of these other carers a reasonable rate of pay? Is it unjust to do that? Is it unreasonable to ask that? Are not these people heroes and heroic for the state? How would it be in the morning if the Taoiseach or the Minister for Finance went and stood before Angela Merkel or the Troika or any of those bondholders that we are going to pay and said to them, we are not going to give you any more money?
Just 1 minute, Deputy.
And the next day they stood before Mary or Stephen or some other carer in this country and said, we're going to give it to you. Irrespective as to what the consequences would be, every man, woman and child would stand behind the Taoiseach, the Minister for Finance and everyone in this Parliament if they'd done that. And I would finally say that the heroism that they display, funnily enough, is not so much towards the person they care for. It's not towards their own body, where they become ill and distressed and need medical attention quicker than many other people over a shorter period of their lives. It's the heroism they show to this state, where they save this state so much money every year. And all they ask in return is, would you treat them just? Would you treat them fairly? Would you treat them with respect? Would you give to them what they deserve? The carers don't demand, they never do, never will. Their request. Thank you very much.
Sin generation G Sporok, I must now put the question on amendment number 1 in the name of the Taoiseach and all the ministers. The question is that the amendment be made. Chakti Tar, Him Nikesh Aberjis Ta, Chakti and Kunya Aberjis Neil, Shim Golden Kesh Richa, Votar. Could have some order, please? Would members please take their designated seats? The vote will be taking place shortly. Members could please take their designated seats. Item 93, motion re-carers, amendment number 1 in the name of An Taoiseach. The question is that the amendment be made on that question. A division has been challenged. Tellers Taw Deputies Paul Keoghan, Emil Stagg, Tellers Neil Deputy John Halligan and Catherine Murphy.